All right, we got a story here. This is Buster Chops. And we've got the Canadian Press. Trump envoy to Canada defends pause in World Health Organization funding. So, as most people probably know, the United States has put a halt on their payments to the World Health Organization while they do an investigation into the mismanagement of the coronavirus outbreak and pandemic. As far as I'm concerned, the envoy to Canada, the United States, has no reason to defend their decision at all. I think the United Nations has totally dropped the ball. And the fact is the United Nations is an organization that is comprised of the vast majority of countries in the world. So if we look at how many countries there are in the world, it says, let's see here, non-member countries, although most of the world's 196 countries. So there's about 196 countries. And I know there are some areas that are disputed, so that may be up or down a little bit. But let's look at how many countries are in the United Nations. 193. 193 out of about 196. And some of the places that are out are things like Taiwan, who kind of want to be in, but they don't get let in because that would offend the Chinese. So they're like, sorry, Taiwan, you'll have to kind of sit on the outskirts. We're not going to let you in. But here's the dirty secret. When it comes to organizations like this, if you've got virtually everybody being a member of the United Nations, then virtually nobody is a member of the United Nations. Because if you have an organization that is this big and it comprises everybody, and last I checked, the world isn't one big, huge globe of peace where everybody just gets along and decisions made by the United Nations are adhered to and respected by everybody. Oh, no, no, no. There's still tons of chaos and lots of skirmishes and battles and contestations. And when the United Nations makes decisions on some of these contested areas, such as we saw in the South China Sea, and I did a video about that as well, and the United Nations comes down and they have tribunals that basically say, sorry, China, this isn't your territory. China just says, you know what, we're going to ignore you. So if this organization that everybody's a part of doesn't really have any power and everybody's in it and there's still tons of problems, why don't they just get rid of it? Right? Just abandon the whole thing because it's a failed organization. We sit there and we say, okay, great. Now all these countries can just start making their own alliances. And if they want to create a new United Nations, countries of like mind and like value can band together and they can say, great, here's our grouping. And then when those groups of countries become amazingly successful and others want to get in, you can petition and then they can say, well, no, sorry, because you don't meet our criteria. So Iran, we're not going to put you in charge of our human rights division because you're terrible with human rights. So we're not going to let you in. But you know what? You can get in. You can get in by becoming good with human rights and by respecting people's rights to freedom and liberty and all those other wonderful things that make places fantastic places to live, right? Because if you have countries like the United States or Canada or all these other countries, Western typed countries, everybody seems to want to move to them, right? So there's probably something good going on there. But if you've got a country and your military and your police are tasked with ensuring that people cannot leave your borders and people still risk death to get out of your borders, odds are you're doing something wrong. And you need to take a good hard look at yourself. But that's not going to happen when we're all together in these United Nations and we have this illusion of camaraderie, because there is no camaraderie with it. So when I see a story where the United States says, forget it, you guys dropped the ball, you guys were working ostensibly for the Chinese government to cover up a virus that could have serious health ramifications. Now, as an aside, I don't think there's that big a deal with the coronavirus. I think it is overblown, and I think it is it's being used by governments around the world, including Western democracies, uh, to basically test how far they can push their control over their free societies. And I think right now that people are giving away too many of their rights far too easily. But that's a story for another day. But anyway, it's not like the United States has said, forget it, we're not going to do anything on medical research, right? It says here the US is still doing its part to support the international effort to fight the pandemic through an additional $775 million in funding through the United States Department's aid branch. So they're still doing a lot of stuff here. They're pouring big bucks into looking out for cures and treatments and all this other stuff. And that $775 million, I don't doubt for a second that that is probably going to be far better spent doing it the way that they do it rather than funneling it into the World Health Organization and having it distributed to who knows where amongst who knows who among the bureaucracy and red tape and everything else that goes along with these major or bureaucratic organizations. So don't even feel like you have to defend it as far as I'm concerned. Tell them all to stick it in their pie hole.